The auditorium was packed, every seat filled with eager faces waiting for my performance. But none of them knew the truth behind the sold-out show they were about to witness. That the villain they would watch unfold on stage was sitting right there in the front row, her face growing paler by the minute as she realized what I had done. And what I was about to do would destroy her reputation forever. The velvet curtains trembled with anticipation. Every seat in the house was occupied by people who had no idea they were about to witness the most ruthless revenge ever orchestrated on a theater stage. The whispers of the crowd faded as the orchestra tuned their final notes. But none of them knew the devastating truth behind the glittering debut of The Bitter Rose. The play that had sold out 3 nights before opening night, breaking every attendance record in our college's history. This story did not start with art. It started with pure, venomous envy that would consume everything in its path. I was never the type to demand attention. I earned it. Every single moment of it. Every tear, every gasp, every standing ovation. In our college theater department, talent spoke louder than gossip. And no one, absolutely no one, could outact me. Not even Melanie Brooks, the girl with the golden curls cascading down her shoulders like a waterfall of deception. The sugar-sweet smile that could melt hearts while hiding the poison beneath. And a gift for drama that extended well beyond the stage into every corner of her manipulative, soul-crushing existence. For 2 grueling years, Melanie and I had shared leading roles, applause, even late-night rehearsals that stretched until dawn broke over our exhausted bodies. We had been friends once. Or so I thought. But friendship was just another role she was playing. Another mask she wore to hide her true nature. When Professor Harris announced open auditions for his original play, a deeply emotional, character-driven drama that could shatter hearts and rebuild souls, every student knew this role could be a launchpad to Broadway dreams. This was not just another college production. This was our shot at greatness, our chance to prove we belonged among the stars. I had prepared for months. I knew every line, every emotion, every breath that Rose would take. I had studied the character until she lived inside my bones. I auditioned with everything I had. I gave it my entire soul, bleeding my heart out on that stage. I wept on cue, tears streaming down my face like rivers of raw emotion that came from the deepest parts of my being. I broke down completely, letting my heart shatter into 1,000 pieces on that stage. I rebuilt myself from the fragments, piece by agonizing piece, showing everyone in that room what true vulnerability looked like. I became Rose, the tragic lead with a story that could move mountains and break the coldest hearts. And for once, no one questioned it. Not even Melanie, who usually had something sarcastic to say about everyone else's performances. She did not show up to auditions. Said she was sick, with some mysterious ailment that conveniently struck right before the most important audition of our college careers. I thought it strange, but part of me was secretly relieved. She would have made a devastatingly strong contender. Strong enough to maybe steal the role right from under my nose. Just like she had stolen so many other opportunities before with her calculated charm and fake innocence. I got the part. The lead role of Rose was mine. Finally, after years of sharing the spotlight, I would stand alone in its golden glow. Weeks of intensive rehearsal passed like a blur of emotions and endless preparation. I poured my entire soul into the performance, bleeding my heart out onto that stage night after night during practice sessions. I lived and breathed Rose. I became her pain, her hope, her desperate fight for love and recognition. And then, 2 days before the official preview that would determine our opening night success, Melanie struck like a viper. She collapsed in the middle of the student cafe during the lunch rush, when the maximum number of people would witness her breakdown. Pale as a ghost, shaking like a leaf in a hurricane, tears brimming in her eyes like she was auditioning for the role of a lifetime. She gasped and clutched her chest, whispering about chest pains and mysterious symptoms. She said she was suffering from some rare condition that doctors could not diagnose yet, something that was slowly killing her dreams along with her body. She cried about her missed chances, how theater was her only dream, how she wished she had auditioned for the role that was now mine. She spoke of how she watched from her sickbed as others lived the life she should have had. And people? They ate it up like starving wolves devouring fresh meat. The ambulance came. She was rushed to the hospital. Tests were run. Nothing was found. But the damage was done. Suddenly, the sympathy posts flooded social media like a tsunami of fake concern. Poor Melanie. So talented, so unlucky. She would have been a perfect rose. The comments multiplied like a plague, each one a knife twisted deeper into my heart. I overheard conversations everywhere I went. In the hallways, in the cafeteria, in the bathroom stalls where people thought no one could hear them. No offense to Jenna, but Melanie just has that presence, you know? That natural star quality. I heard she was going to audition but got sick. Such a tragedy. She would have been better than whoever got the part. My name is Jenna, by the way. The actual lead. The one who earned the role through talent and dedication, not through manipulative theatrics. That night, I scrolled through Melanie's bedridden stories with growing horror and disbelief. Her Instagram had transformed into a shrine of self-pity. Cozy blankets arranged perfectly for maximum sympathy. Expensive skincare products casually placed in the background to show she was treating herself during her illness. Sad violin music playing in the background like a soundtrack to her deception. She whispered tearfully to the camera, "I just wanted to shine. But maybe it was not meant for me. Maybe some dreams are just too beautiful to come true." The comments exploded like fireworks. Hundreds of likes within hours. Dozens of comments begging her to recover. And one common thread that made my blood boil with rage. "You deserve a role like Rose more than anyone. The theater department is missing out on true talent. Get better soon, superstar. The stage needs you." That was when I knew with absolute certainty. She was not sick. She was performing. Offstage. And somehow, stealing my spotlight while lying in bed wearing designer pajamas. But here is what she did not know about me. I was not just talented. I was smart. Dangerously smart. I did not confront her about her lies. I did not expose her on social media. I did not scream or cry or throw a tantrum like she expected me to. I studied her instead. Every gesture, every manipulation, every perfectly timed tear. I watched her like a scientist studying a particularly venomous species. Because if Melanie wanted the spotlight so desperately that she was willing to fake a life-threatening illness for it, I would give it to her. But on my terms. In my way. With my rules. Professor Harris had given us creative freedom to suggest character adjustments and improvements. The script was still flexible, still growing. So I started enhancing Rose's antagonist, Lady Thorne, who had been nothing more than a background character in the original script. She was originally just a jealous countess with a few bitter lines about lost love. I transformed her into something far more sinister, far more complex, manipulative, attention-hungry, a woman who faked illness to control those around her, a master of sympathy who could cry on command, a predator who fed on other people's pity and used their kindness as a weapon against them, a shadow in velvet gloves who destroyed lives with perfectly timed performances. Sound familiar? It should have. Every single detail of Melanie's behavior fed directly into Lady Thorne's character. Her mannerisms, her stories, her voice, her practiced vulnerability. Every little trick and manipulation became part of my villain's arsenal. The way she tilted her head when she wanted sympathy. The specific catch in her voice when she spoke of her dreams. The way she touched her chest when discussing her condition. The tears that appeared at exactly the right moment for maximum impact. I copied it all. Every gesture, every inflection, every perfectly calculated moment of fake weakness. The entire cast noticed the dramatic shift in the character's depth and complexity. They applauded the new dimension I had brought to the role. Professor Harris was amazed at the psychological complexity I had added to what had been a simple villain. "Where did this come from?" he asked after I performed a particularly intense scene where Lady Thorne manipulated a room full of people with her fake illness. I just smiled and said, "Life experience." I said nothing about my inspiration. Nothing about the real-life monster who had given me the blueprint for the perfect villain. Opening night approached like a thunderstorm on the horizon. Posters went up all over campus with my face prominently displayed. Tickets sold out faster than anyone had expected. My image was everywhere, but the buzz? Still half about Melanie and her tragic, what could have been, story that people could not stop talking about. She had posted updates from her recovery. showing herself slowly getting better just in time to attend the opening night. How convenient. How perfectly timed. So I sent her a ticket. Front row. Center seat. With a handwritten note. I hope you feel better soon. I know how much theater means to you. She posted about receiving the ticket, crying about how touched she was by my kindness. The comments poured in about what a good friend I was. If only they knew. Opening night arrived like destiny knocking on my door. The theater was packed beyond capacity. People were standing in the aisles. The local newspaper had sent a critic. Word had spread about this mysterious play that had sold out so quickly. I stood in the wings, watching Melanie take her seat in the front row. She looked radiant, perfectly healthy, glowing with the attention she was receiving from people who stopped to ask how she was feeling. The curtain rose on my moment of truth. I stepped onto the stage trembling, not with fear, but with fire burning in my veins. I became Rose, wounded, brave, betrayed, fighting for her life and her love against impossible odds. For the first 2 acts, I was perfection. I was everything Rose needed to be. The audience was captivated, hanging on every word, every emotion. But they had no idea what was coming. And when Lady Thorne swept into the scene like a hurricane of manipulation and lies, the atmosphere in the theater changed completely. The audience gasped. Not because of the drama unfolding on stage. Not because of the elaborate costume or the dramatic lighting. Because they recognized her. They saw Melanie. The same arch of the brow that she used when she wanted sympathy. The same drawn-out sighs that punctuated her fake illness stories. The tears that appeared on command. The soft voice like honey laced with arsenic that she used to manipulate everyone around her. But I was not done. Not even close. I had memorized every single detail of her performance. Every Instagram story, every tearful video, every carefully crafted moment of vulnerability. And now I was giving it all back to her. Lady Thorne spoke of her mysterious illness, touching her chest exactly the way Melanie did. She talked about her dreams with the same catch in her voice. She cried the same perfectly timed tears. I watched Melanie's face in the front row. Her mouth slowly fell open in horror as she realized what I was doing. Color drained from her cheeks like water flowing from a broken dam. She tried to look away, but she could not. The entire audience was watching Lady Thorne, watching her destroy an innocent woman with lies and manipulation. In the final act, when Rose confronted Lady Thorne about her deception, I channeled every ounce of rage and betrayal I had felt. I screamed with the fury of someone who had been wronged, who had been stolen from, who had been manipulated by someone she trusted. You pretended to be sick just to steal what you could not earn. I roared, my voice echoing through the theater like thunder. You fed on sympathy like a parasite. You destroyed dreams to build your own twisted fantasy. The words hit Melanie like physical blows. She gripped the arms of her seat, her knuckles white with tension. But I was not finished. I had saved the best for last. You are not sick, Rose continued, staring directly at Lady Thorne. You are something far worse. You are a fraud. A liar. A thief who steals not money or possessions but hope itself. The theater fell silent. You could hear a pin drop. Every person in that audience understood that they were witnessing something more than a play. They were witnessing the exposure of a truth that had been hidden in plain sight. Then applause erupted. Not polite theater applause. Not the kind you give because you are supposed to. This was thunderous, earth-shattering applause that shook the very foundations of the building. People leaped to their feet. They cheered. They screamed. They applauded not just for the play, not just for my performance, but for the truth. The devastating, beautiful truth that everyone finally understood. After the show, people did not rush to Melanie with their usual sympathy and concern. They avoided her. They whispered. They stared. They crowded around me like moths to a flame, their faces glowing with admiration and excitement. You were absolutely incredible. That villain felt so real, so terrifying. Where did you get the inspiration for such a complex character? I smiled graciously, accepting their praise while watching Melanie from the corner of my eye. She sat in her seat, frozen, as people filed past her without a second glance. She left during curtain call, slipping out like a shadow in the night while I took bow after bow to standing ovations. She never posted another sympathy story again. Her social media fell silent. The girl who had lived for attention suddenly wanted to disappear. But I was not done with her yet. The next morning I posted on my Instagram a simple photo of me holding a bouquet of roses from the night before, with a caption that would seal her fate. Thank you to everyone who came to see the Bitter Rose last night. Sometimes the best performances come from real life. Sometimes the people who inspire us are sitting right in the audience. Art imitates life, but sometimes life gives us the most incredible characters of all. #Theater is life, #truth in art, #opening night. The post went viral. Comments flooded in from people who had been at the show, people who had watched Melanie's illness unfold, people who suddenly understood exactly what had happened. OMG, I just realized who Lady Thorne reminded me of. This is the most savage thing I have ever seen. She literally turned her into the villain. I am living for this. Within hours, Melanie's carefully constructed image crumbled. People started sharing screenshots of her old posts, pointing out inconsistencies in her story. Medical students explained why her symptoms did not make sense. Theater majors analyzed her performance and found it lacking. She became a cautionary tale. A meme. A warning about what happens when you try to steal someone else's spotlight. A week later, the Bitter Rose was extended for another 3 nights due to overwhelming demand. Then another week. Then another. Professor Harris pulled me aside after one of the performances and said, "I do not know what you tapped into during this production, but it was pure genius. You have created something truly special. Something that will be remembered long after we are all gone." I just smiled, keeping my secret locked away like a precious treasure. Because sometimes, the best revenge is not confrontation or angry words or public arguments. It is creation. It is art. It is turning pain into something beautiful and powerful and eternal. She faked being sick to steal my spotlight, to take what I had earned through blood, sweat, and tears. So I turned her into the villain she truly was. I immortalized her deception in art. I made her famous in the worst possible way. And gave her exactly what she wanted: attention, recognition, people talking about her performance. Everyone was watching. The entire theater was captivated. The whole school was buzzing with conversation. Only this time, they were applauding me, standing and cheering for my triumph, celebrating my victory over deception and manipulation. Opening night? Sold out completely with people begging for tickets. Final night? A standing ovation that lasted for 15 minutes, with people crying and screaming my name. And Melanie? She transferred schools before the semester ended. Some said she could not handle the embarrassment. Others whispered that she had finally been exposed for what she really was: a fraud who used sympathy as a weapon. But I knew the truth. She had not just been embarrassed. She had been destroyed. Not by me, but by her own actions reflected back at her like a mirror showing her true face. The reviews were glowing. Critics called it a masterpiece of psychological drama, and a tour de force performance that will be remembered for years to come. The local newspaper ran a feature story about my breakthrough performance. Theater department alumni reached out with opportunities and connections. But the sweetest victory was not in the reviews or the accolades or the standing ovations. It was in the moment when Melanie realized that her manipulation had become my masterpiece, that her lies had been transformed into my truth, that her attempt to steal my spotlight had only made mine burn brighter, hotter, more brilliantly than ever before. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that she had quit theater entirely. The girl who had claimed it was her only dream had abandoned it the moment she could not manipulate her way to the top. I did not feel sorry for her. I had given her exactly what she deserved. She had wanted to be unforgettable, to be the center of attention, to be talked about and remembered. Mission accomplished. The theater department still talks about that production. Professor Harris uses it as an example of how personal experience can elevate art to extraordinary heights. New students ask me about my method, and how I created such a memorable, terrifying villain. I tell them the truth. The best characters come from life. The most powerful performances come from genuine emotion. And sometimes, the people who try to tear you down end up giving you the greatest gifts of all. Because Melanie's betrayal taught me something invaluable about the nature of art and revenge. She showed me that when someone tries to steal your spotlight, you do not have to fight them for it in the shadows. You can create your own light. You can build your own stage. You can write your own story. And you can make sure that when the curtain falls, you are the one receiving the standing ovation while your enemies sit in the darkness, forgotten and irrelevant. The Bitter Rose ran for 2 months instead of the planned 3 nights. Every single show was sold out. The waiting list for tickets stretched around the block. Theater critics from New York came to see what all the excitement was about. Regional theater companies reached out about producing the play. Film scouts attended performances. Agents left their business cards at the box office. And I stood on that stage night after night, transformed by the power of turning pain into art, betrayal into beauty, manipulation into masterpiece. She wanted to be the star. She wanted all eyes on her. She wanted to be unforgettable. I made sure she got exactly what she wished for. But not in the way she expected. Not as the victim she pretended to be. Not as the tragic heroine of her own fictional story. As the villain. As the warning. As the cautionary tale that would be whispered about for years to come. Now, whenever someone mentions the Bitter Rose, they remember Lady Thorne. The villain who seemed so real, so terrifyingly authentic, that audience members still talk about her years later. They remember the performance that launched my career and opened doors I had only dreamed of. They remember the night when truth triumphed over deception, when art conquered manipulation, when the real talent finally got the recognition it deserved. And somewhere out there, in whatever new life she has built for herself, Melanie knows that every time someone mentions that play, they are really talking about her. Not as the victim she pretended to be, but as the villain she actually was. The spotlight she tried to steal became the stage where her true nature was revealed for all to see. And that, my friends, is the most perfect revenge of all. Sometimes the best way to defeat your enemies is not to destroy them, but to immortalize them, as the villains they truly are. She faked being sick to steal my spotlight. I turned her into the villain of my masterpiece, and gave her exactly what she wanted. Everyone watching, everyone talking, everyone remembering. Just not in the way she expected. Opening night? Sold out. Final night? Standing ovation. My career? Launched into the stratosphere. Her reputation? Buried 6 feet under. And me? I learned that sometimes the most beautiful art comes from the ugliest betrayals. Sometimes the greatest triumphs rise from the ashes of our deepest pain. She thought she could steal my light. Instead, she became the darkness that made my light shine even brighter. And I will never, ever forget the look on her face when she realized what I had done. It was the performance of a lifetime. Hers and mine. But the story does not end there. Oh no, it gets so much better. 3 days after opening night, I received a phone call that would change everything. A talent scout from a major Broadway production company had been in the audience. They wanted to meet with me about a role in an upcoming production. Your performance as Rose was incredible, the woman said over the phone. But what really caught our attention was your character development of Lady Thorne. The psychological complexity you brought to that role was unlike anything we have seen from someone your age. I almost laughed. If only she knew where that psychological complexity had come from. The meeting was set for the following week in New York City. My first real shot at Broadway, and it was all thanks to Melanie's manipulation and my revenge. Meanwhile, Melanie's world continued to crumble. I heard through the theater department grapevine that she had been confronted by several students who had figured out the truth about her fake illness. One pre-med student had even publicly debunked her symptoms on social media, explaining why her rare condition was medically impossible. But the most devastating blow came from an unexpected source. Professor Harris called me into his office a week after the final performance. I expected congratulations, maybe a discussion about my future in theater. Instead, he handed me a letter. "This came for you yesterday," he said, his expression unreadable. "I think you should read it." The letter was from Melanie. Handwritten, tear-stained, desperate. "Jenna, I know what you did. I know you turned me into Lady Thorne. I know you exposed me in front of everyone. I deserve it. I deserve all of it. I was never sick. You were right. I faked everything because I could not stand watching you get another lead role. I could not stand being second best anymore. I thought if I could not have the spotlight, maybe I could steal some of yours. I never meant for it to go so far. I never meant to hurt you so badly. But once I started, I could not stop. The attention was like a drug. People cared about me, worried about me, thought I was special. I know I can never take back what I did. I know I can never earn your forgiveness. But I want you to know that watching you perform that night, seeing my own cruelty reflected back at me through Lady Thorne, I finally understood what I had become. You did not just expose me. You held up a mirror and forced me to see the monster I had turned into. I am leaving the theater program. I am transferring schools. I cannot stay here knowing what I have done, knowing how everyone looks at me now. You won. You got your revenge. I hope it was worth it. But I also hope that someday, when you are famous and successful and everything you dreamed of becoming, you will remember that I was not always a villain. I was your friend once. Before I became jealous and bitter and cruel. I am sorry. I am so sorry. Melanie. P.S. You were incredible as Rose. You deserved that role more than anyone. I hope you get everything you have ever dreamed of. I stared at the letter for a long time, reading it over and over again. Part of me felt a twinge of something, guilt? Satisfaction? I could not tell. Professor Harris watched me carefully. What are you thinking? He asked. I am thinking, I said slowly, that sometimes people have to face the consequences of their actions. And sometimes those consequences come in forms they never expected. He nodded. Melanie came to see me before she wrote that letter. She confessed everything. The fake illness, the manipulation, the attention-seeking. She asked me if there was any way to make things right. What did you tell her? I told her that some mistakes cannot be undone, but that does not mean the person who made them cannot change. He paused. I also told her that what you did, turning her behavior into art, was one of the most brilliant pieces of character development I have ever seen. I felt a surge of pride mixed with something darker. She gave me everything I needed to create Lady Thorne. Every gesture, every manipulation, every lie. She handed me the perfect villain on a silver platter. And you used it masterfully, he said. But I have to ask, do you feel any remorse? Any guilt about what you did to her? I considered the question carefully. Did I feel guilty? About exposing a liar? About turning manipulation into art? About giving someone exactly what they deserved? No, I said finally. I do not feel guilty. She made her choices. She decided to fake an illness to steal attention from my success. She decided to manipulate people's sympathy for her own gain. She decided to try to destroy my dreams to build her own fantasy. And you decided to destroy her in return. I decided to tell the truth. I corrected. Through art. Through performance. Through showing people exactly who she really was underneath all the lies and manipulation. Professor Harris leaned back in his chair. You know, in all my years teaching theater, I have never seen anything quite like what you did. The way you channeled your personal experience into your art. The way you used real emotion to create something powerful and meaningful. It was extraordinary. Thank you. But I also want you to remember something, Jenna. Power is a dangerous thing. The ability to influence people, to make them see what you want them to see, that is a tremendous responsibility. You used it for justice this time, but you must always be careful not to become the very thing you fought against. His words stayed with me as I left his office. Was I becoming like Melanie? Was I using manipulation and performance to get what I wanted? But no, there was a difference. I had used truth. I had shown people reality. Melanie had used lies and deception. The Broadway audition was everything I had dreamed of and more. The role was perfect for me, a complex, challenging character in a drama that would run for months. The director was impressed with my range, my emotional depth, my ability to bring psychological complexity to my characters. Where did you learn to tap into such dark emotions? She asked during the callback. Life experience, I said, just as I had told Professor Harris. I got the part. 3 months later, I was living in New York City, rehearsing for my Broadway debut. The play was called Shadows of Truth, and I was playing the lead. a young woman who exposes the lies and corruption in her small town through a series of dramatic revelations. Art imitating life, once again. Opening night on Broadway was everything I had ever dreamed of. The theater was packed with critics, celebrities, industry professionals. The performance was flawless. The reviews were glowing. "A star is born," wrote the New York Times critic. Jenna Morrison brings a rare combination of vulnerability and strength to her role, creating a character that is both heartbreaking and powerful. The show was a success. I was a success. My dreams were coming true. But sometimes, late at night in my tiny New York apartment, I would think about Melanie. I would wonder where she was, what she was doing, if she ever thought about that night when her lies were exposed for all to see. I heard through mutual friends that she had changed her major to business. She was doing well, apparently. She had found a new group of friends who did not know about her theater department scandal. She was building a new life, a new identity. Good for her, I thought. Maybe she had learned her lesson. Maybe she had become a better person. But I also knew that I would never forget what she had done. How she had tried to steal my spotlight, my dreams, my moment of glory. How she had used sympathy as a weapon and manipulation as a tool. And I would never forget how it felt to turn her cruelty into art. To transform her betrayal into my triumph. To take her lies and make them into truth. Because that is what real artists do. We take the raw material of life, the pain, the betrayal, the darkness, and we transform it into something beautiful and meaningful and powerful. She faked being sick to steal my spotlight. I turned her into the villain of my masterpiece. And now, every night on Broadway, I step onto that stage and channel every lesson she taught me about the difference between truth and lies, between earned success and stolen glory, between real talent and manipulative performance. She wanted to be unforgettable. She wanted to be talked about. She wanted to be the center of attention. Mission accomplished. But not in the way she expected. Not as the star she dreamed of being. As the cautionary tale. As the warning. As the perfect example of what happens when you try to steal someone else's light. And me? I am exactly where I belong. In the spotlight. On the stage. Living my dreams. The spotlight she tried to steal became the foundation of my success. Her lies became my truth. Her manipulation became my art. Her downfall became my rise. And every night, when the curtain falls and the audience gives me a standing ovation, I remember her words. "You won. You got your revenge. I hope it was worth it." It was worth it. It was worth everything. Because sometimes, the best revenge is not just success. It is transformation. It is taking the worst thing someone does to you and turning it into the best thing that ever happened to you. She faked being sick to steal my spotlight. I turned her into the villain of my play. And now, she is the reason I am shining brighter than I ever imagined possible. Opening night? Sold out. Broadway debut? Standing ovation. Career? Launched into the stratosphere. Dreams? Coming true every single night. And her? She is still just a memory of manipulation that I transformed into a masterpiece. The performance of a lifetime. Hers and mine. But mine is still going. Every night. To sold-out crowds and standing ovations. Hers ended the night she realized what I had done. And that, my friends, is how you turn betrayal into Broadway gold. Performance. But for the truth. The devastating, beautiful truth that everyone finally understood. After the show, people did not rush to Melanie with their usual sympathy and concern. They crowded around me like moths to a flame. They whispered with awe. "You were absolutely incredible. That villain felt so real, so terrifying. Where did you get the inspiration for such a complex character?" Melanie left quietly before curtain call, slipping out like a shadow in the night. She never posted another sympathy story again. Her social media fell silent. A week later, The Bitter Rose was extended for another 3 nights due to overwhelming demand. Professor Harris pulled me aside after the final performance and said, "I do not know what you tapped into during this production, but it was pure genius. You have created something truly special." I just smiled, keeping my secret locked away. Because sometimes, the best revenge is not confrontation or angry words. It is creation. It is art. It is turning pain into something beautiful and powerful. She faked being sick to steal my spotlight, to take what I had earned through blood, sweat, and tears. So I turned her into the villain she truly was, and gave her exactly what she wanted: attention. Everyone was watching. The entire theater was captivated. Only this time, they were applauding me, standing and cheering for my triumph. Opening night? Sold out completely. Final night? A standing ovation that lasted for 10 minutes. And Melanie? Just a memory of deception that had been transformed into art. The reviews were glowing. Critics called it a masterpiece of psychological drama, and a tour de force performance that will be remembered for years to come. The local newspaper ran a feature story about my breakthrough performance. Theater department alumni reached out with opportunities and connections. But the sweetest victory was not in the reviews or the accolades. It was in the moment when Melanie realized that her manipulation had become my masterpiece, that her lies had been transformed into my truth, that her attempt to steal my spotlight had only made mine burn brighter. Months later, I heard through the grapevine that Melanie had transferred to a different school. Some said she could not handle the embarrassment. Others whispered that she had finally been exposed for what she really was: a fraud who used sympathy as a weapon. I did not feel sorry for her. I had given her exactly what she deserved. The theater department still talks about that production. Professor Harris uses it as an example of how personal experience can elevate art to extraordinary heights. New students ask me about my method and how I created such a memorable villain. I tell them the truth. The best characters come from life. The most powerful performances come from genuine emotion. And sometimes, the people who try to tear you down end up giving you the greatest gifts of all. Because Melanie's betrayal taught me something invaluable about the nature of art and revenge. She showed me that when someone tries to steal your spotlight, you do not have to fight them for it in the shadows. You can create your own light. You can build your own stage. You can write your own story. And you can make sure that when the curtain falls, you are the one receiving the standing ovation. The Bitter Rose ran for 6 weeks instead of the planned 3. Every show was sold out. The waiting list for tickets stretched around the block. Theater critics from the city came to see what all the excitement was about. And I stood on that stage night after night, transformed by the power of turning pain into art, betrayal into beauty, manipulation into masterpiece. She wanted to be the star. She wanted all eyes on her. She wanted to be unforgettable. I made sure she got exactly what she wished for, but not in the way she expected. Now, whenever someone mentions the Bitter Rose, they remember Lady Thorne, the villain who seemed so real, so terrifyingly authentic, that audience members still talk about her years later. They remember the performance that launched my career and opened doors I had only dreamed of. They remember the night when truth triumphed over deception, when art conquered manipulation, when the real talent finally got the recognition it deserved. And somewhere out there, Melanie knows that every time someone mentions that play, they are really talking about her, not as the victim she pretended to be, but as the villain she actually was. The spotlight she tried to steal became the stage where her true nature was revealed for all to see. And that, my friends, is the most perfect revenge of all. Sometimes the best way to defeat your enemies is not to destroy them, but to immortalize them as the villains they truly are. She faked being sick to steal my spotlight. I turned her into the villain of my masterpiece and gave her exactly what she wanted. Everyone watching, just not in the way she expected. Opening night? Sold out. Final night? Standing ovation. And my career? Just beginning. If you enjoyed this story of creative revenge and artistic triumph, please subscribe to our channel for more incredible true stories of justice, drama, and the power of turning pain into purpose. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss another amazing story. Your support means everything to us, and we have so many more shocking tales to share with you. Subscribe now and become part of our storytelling family.